Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, 5 Strategies to Achieving Optimum AP Efficiency and Effectiveness, brought to you by IOFM and sponsored by Tapalti. We do have a few housekeeping notes to go over before we officially get started. If you have any technical issues using the webinar platform, please use the chat box and I will respond right away. If you have any issues throughout the webinar regarding audio, please make sure your computer speakers are on, the volume is up, and maybe check that internet connection. Otherwise, you can call in by clicking the phone icon located above the chat window. By clicking the phone icon, you'll receive the teleconference information. For those that do need to call in, to ensure call quality, everyone's lines have been muted today. We will run a Q&A at the end of today's webinar. Please submit your questions in the chat box and we will get to as many as time allows. We also will have 4 polling questions throughout the webinar. A pop-up box will appear when we run each poll. Please choose from the multiple choice answers and hit submit. We would love your participation and insight today. Finally, this webinar will be recorded and you'll receive the thank you email with the on-demand materials within 2 business days. This will include a link to today's live webinar as a recording, so you can play it back as needed, as well as a PDF of the presentation today. And now I'd like to introduce our speakers for today. We have Mark Brousseau, President of Brousseau & Associates. Over the past 26 years, Mark Brousseau has established himself as a thought leader on accounts payable, accounts receivable, payments, and document automation. A popular speaker at industry conferences and on webinars and podcasts, Brousseau advises prominent end users and solutions and services providers on how to use automation to improve document and payments-driven business processes. Brousseau has chaired numerous educational conferences and has served on several industry committees and boards. He resides in Center City, Philadelphia with his wife and 3 sons. We will also hear from Derek Cheng, who is the Senior Director for Corporate Marketing at Tapalti. Derek is the Senior Director of Corporate Marketing at Tapalti, the leader in global payables automation. He leads the development of content and is the co-host of the Business Finance Friends podcast. He's authored multiple white papers and articles in the areas of finance operations and is an avid technologist for back office processes scanning, a career over 25 years. And at this time, I would like to welcome our speakers and hand the webinar off to Mark.
Thank you so much, Laura, and thank you all for joining us today. These days, every business wants to do more with less, and one area where they can achieve these improvements in efficiency and effectiveness is in the way they process invoices and pay their suppliers. 29% of finance leaders surveyed by the Association for Intelligent Information Management believe that accounts payable is a prime candidate for digital transformation. And for their part, controllers identify accounts payable as the most time-consuming, paper-intensive, and labor-intensive finance function. They also believe it's the finance and administration function that would benefit most from automation. So how is it your AP department can become fully optimized? It can eliminate all those manual expensive tasks. During today's webinar, we're going to show you how. We're going to provide you with strategies for how to assess where your accounts payable department currently stands. We're going to lay out the risks of becoming trapped in that no man's land of manual activities. We're going to share with you 5 strategies for moving closer to touch-free invoice processing and supplier payments. And we're going to give you key considerations when evaluating an AP tech stack to help you achieve optimal results. But before we do all that, I want to start with a poll question, which is about to be displayed on your screen. We want to know, how would you describe your department's current level of AP automation? Is your department fully automated with touch-free invoice processing and supplier payments? Are you largely automated? You've deployed some technology, but you still have some manual processes. Are you partially automated? You've deployed some technology, but you still have a lot of manual processes. Or are you a manual, paper pushing AP organization? Take a moment to respond to the poll question now displayed on your screen. We'll discuss the results in just a moment. So Derek, overall, how much progress have AP departments made over the past 18 months in automating their operations?
I think they were all moving towards it to some stage. If they're growing in any way, they're seeing, certainly with the pandemic, that whole change of culture around getting rid of paper. It's happening for sure.
Before the pandemic, what was the biggest driver of AP automation?
I think it was primarily around cost, the cost of operating. But now I think a lot of companies are thinking more about scale as they come back from the pandemic, recovering from there. It's going to play a bigger part.
We asked our attendees, how would you describe your accounts payable department's current level of automation? 28% of our attendees say their department is partially automated. They've deployed some technologies, but they still have a lot of manual processes. Another 28% of our attendees say they're largely automated. They've deployed technology, but they have a few manual processes. 15% of you are manual paper pushing organizations. Only 3% of the attendees on the line today are fully automated. Derek, the goalposts have moved to some extent. In the past, it was okay to be semi-automated like many of our attendees today, but moving forward, that's not going to cut it, is it?
Well, no, it's not, because I think many organizations now are looking at how do we build in kind of more seamless processes. So not only solving for invoicing and whatnot, but what is the process for onboarding suppliers? What is the process for tax compliance? Payments is a big struggle, particularly globally. I'm sure we'll cover some of that later, but yeah, to look at the entire issue as a holistic problem. I think that more organizations are looking to tackle that.
What would be your single biggest piece of advice to our attendees on the line who are living in this largely or partially automated environment and striving to become fully automated?
Yeah, I think start looking at the industry that are providing these tools, and you'll see a lot of consolidation happening in terms of the technologies, in terms of the workflow. So you should probably be considering those as well.
IOFM benchmark data and AP department efficiency and effectiveness paints a very clear picture. Nothing sets AP departments apart than three things. The first is your level of efficiency and effectiveness. And a lot of this can be achieved through best practices of your staff, training and upskilling. Second is cash and spend management. How well does your organization manage its cash flow and its corporate spending? How much of your spend, whether it's direct or indirect, is tightly managed? But the third thing that sets AP departments apart from their peers is their level of automation. And if you're trying to achieve optimum results from your AP department, there's no doubt, as Derek just said, you're going to need to automate. And when you're looking at where you stand today in terms of your efficiency and effectiveness and ability to manage cash and even your ability to process transactions touch-free, there's really 5 key performance indicators that you need to focus on. These are the 5 KPIs that are the most important to AP departments, according to benchmark data from IOFM. The first is the average cost to process an invoice. Compared to their peers with little or no automation, highly automated AP departments are able to process a single invoice for less than 1/4 the cost. In many cases, organizations are spending less than $2 to process an invoice, and many best-in-class organizations spend even less. The second key performance indicator that organizations need to be mindful of is the percentage of invoices processed per FTE. We're all well aware of the labor shortage that's occurring right now. And many organizations, especially fast-growing ones, are really feeling the squeeze. The fact is whether there's a labor shortage or not, we want our staff doing things other than manual repetitive processes like keying invoice data or shuffling paper or fixing errors or mistakes or responding to supplier inquiries. So it's imperative that we find ways to free up our staff to focus on things other than manual tasks. Highly automated AP departments are able to process 8 times as many invoices per full-time equivalent as their peers with little or no automation. 8 times as many invoices. Now, as impressive as that is, consider this. If you combine a high level of automation with a high percentage of PO-backed invoices, now an AP department is able to process more than 11 times as many invoices per FTE as their peers with little automation and fewer PO-backed invoices. What's happening here? Well, what's happening is that in a highly automated environment and one with a high percentage of PO-backed invoices, well, now you're able to post many of those invoices directly to your ERP without anyone ever having to touch them. And this is a sea change for IOFM members. What we find is 63% of all IOFM members handle most of the invoices their organization receives. Even organizations that have deployed technology are manually handling most of the invoices they receive. The third key performance indicator that you need to be mindful of as you start moving toward an optimized AP environment is the average time it takes you to approve an invoice. Highly automated AP departments are able to approve an invoice in less than 1/4 the time as their peers with little or no automation. Now, that's from the time that the invoice shows up on their doorstep to the point at which it's posted to the ERP, ready to pay. The fourth key performance indicator organizations need to be mindful of is the percentage of duplicate payments that their organization makes. Nothing chips away at profitability and frustrates your suppliers as well as your senior management as erroneous payments. Well, organizations with a high level of AP automation are able to experience less than 1/3 the percentage of duplicate payments as their peers with little or no automation. This not only saves them the cost of those of recovering those fees, but it also saves their staff a lot of time on rework. And the fifth key performance indicator that AP departments need to be mindful of is the percentage of early payment discounts captured. 70% of all CFOs want more opportunities to capture early payment discounts. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to take advantage of every early payment discount. There's going to be some cases where it simply doesn't make sense. But the fact is CFOs want those opportunities. The problem is it takes most organizations so darn long to approve an invoice that the early payment discount window is slammed shut by the time that that discount opportunity is available. Highly automated AP departments are able to capture 7 times as many early payment discounts as their peers with little or no automation. And what's more, when you use a solution that offers you supply chain financing, now you're going to be able to capture even more because in many cases now you're not going to be using your cash on your balance sheet for those discounts. So you can have your cake and you can eat it too. Whichever KPI is most important to your organization, the key thing is that you're tracking them. 40% of all IOFM members don't track any KPIs for their AP department. And this is really a missed opportunity. KPIs are a great opportunity to move your organization closer to full optimization. First of all, they show you how you're doing against goals that you've set for yourself or maybe senior management has set for you. We know that the percentage of invoices paid on time is the #1 metric against which AP leaders are measured. Well, if you're not tracking your KPIs, it's going to be really hard to be able to tell how you're doing against them. What's more, KPIs help you shine a light on areas of weakness. once you have a robust program for tracking KPIs, now you're going to be able to identify right down to the task areas that require more focus. What's more, when you're able to track your KPIs, you can simply see what's working and what's not. And that means whether it's a best practice or a piece of automation, you'll be able to prove the impact that that has had on your operations. KPIs also help you measure staff performance. And in today's topsy-turvy finance environment, this is key. I've just returned from the IOFM conference, and one of the biggest challenges that AP leaders shared with me was that their KPIs have gone out the window now that their staff is working remotely. Now they need new ways to measure their performance, and automation can be a great tool here. But the fact is that you also have to adapt your KPIs to this new remote work environment. And finally, and most important for some of the conversation we'll have later today, KPIs help you create a foundation for building a business case for automation. One of the reasons that AP automation projects get stuck in the mud is that there's simply no good baseline data for being able to show where things stand today. So how the devil can you benchmark where you think you'll be after you've automated? And what's more, if you don't have good baseline data today, it's going to be hard to prove the value of the technology you've deployed. So you'll never really know just how you're doing against that business case. And trust me, senior management will be watching. Once you've collected your KPIs, one of the imperative things to do is to benchmark your operations against your peers. And this is where IOFM becomes critical. You can use the data you collect from your department to see how you stand against other organizations of your size, of your industry, with your invoice volume, or maybe even with your type of arrangement. And this is going to help you be able to identify those areas that need the most focus. One of the other key steps in assessing your operations as you move toward optimizing your AP flows is to be able to document your current workflows. Now, before COVID, I used to always recommend that AP leaders go down to their local office supply store and buy one of those big brown rolls of craft paper. You've seen them. They must weigh 50 pounds. They're huge. And then I always say, go get yourself some of those big smelly markers. The more toxic, the better. And then have everybody gather around the conference table and start documenting all of the different workflows that your organization has. And there's going to be quite a few of them. What you want to do is you want to understand how it is that your organization handles PO-based invoices, non-PO-based invoices, recurring invoices, high dollar invoices, maybe invoices from strategic suppliers, maybe invoices from new suppliers. Whatever the scenario, you want to make sure you document exactly how it is that each of them is handled. Who are the stakeholders? Where are they located? What are the dependencies? And what will happen is as you engage your frontline staff and other stakeholders in helping you understand these workflows, you're going to start to see challenges percolate to the top. You'll understand that there's going to be cases where workflows need to be refreshed. In other cases, workflows will probably need to just be retired. You'll discover that there's no good reason for doing some of these things. The key thing is to document all these. Now, I know that depending on where you are in the country, it might be impractical for everyone to gather around a conference table and use your toxic markers to chart this all out. So do it virtually. This is be a much more fun exercise on Zoom. The key thing will be to do it piecemeal and collect all of those workflows and get input from stakeholders such as procurement and treasury. So anyone who touches these workflows, you can get their input. Once you've gathered your KPIs and you've documented your workflows, well, now you're going to start to understand where it is some of your top priorities for improvement are in AP. And some of these improvement areas will also be informed by, senior management as well. They're going to vary from organization to organization. So please don't use any one study as gospel. But with that said, here are 5 priorities that typically are key to organizations. The first, as Derek said, is cost reduction. This is timeless. Every organization wants to find ways to wring out inefficiencies. And when you have paper-based or semi-automated processes, there's going to be plenty of those. And manual tasks are a key thing to focus on here. Studies show that about 62% of the typical AP department's budget is wrapped up in labor. So if your organization is keying data and shuffling paper and responding to those phone calls from suppliers, well, you're going to have higher costs than your peers that have already automated. Another key priority, especially now as we try to navigate a tough economy, is getting better spend management. Only 75% of organizations have strong control over 3/4 or more of all of their corporate spending. Now, think about this. If I asked you if you'd be okay if only 1/4 of all your corporate spending was out of control or being wasted, would you be okay with that? Well, that's where we are today. And spend management is a key driver of optimizing AP departments. Another key priority for AP departments is enhanced visibility. This is one of the biggest pet peeves of controllers and CFOs when it comes to their AP department. They want to know where things stand with cash flow. They want to know where things stand with corporate spending. Well, if you're one of the 40% of AP departments that are relying on spreadsheets to do your reporting, well, you probably aren't giving them what they need. The moment you hit save on those spreadsheets, the data is out of date. Spreadsheets are easily corrupted, and they're not always accessible to everyone who needs them. And so chances are that visibility is going to be a priority for your organization. Another key priority is greater collaboration. This idea of procure to pay, right? Getting visibility from the point that a purchase requisition is made all the way through payment settlement. Well, this is all about collaborating with your peers to be able to understand what's going on with your processes, to eliminate exceptions, to accelerate approvals. And finally, organizations are looking for ways to optimize their working capital, to better forecast their cash and take better control over it through early payment discounts and cashback rebates and extended DPO and other measures. Whatever your priorities are, you want to make sure that they're clear to everyone in your organization. This way you have a goal for moving forward. And chances are your goals have probably changed over the past 18 months. After all, the prolonged shift to remote working has completely thrown things into a tizzy. Today, organizations say they have a lot of concerns about fraud and compliance. We know that the move to remote working has disrupted established processes and procedures for how it is we approve invoices and pay suppliers. Organizations are also seeing a spike in supplier inquiries. This move to emailed invoices has created some challenges. Suppliers can't be sure that you received their email. And so what do? Well, in many cases, they send it multiple times, or they call and they email. They've got cash flow issues too. And many organizations are having trouble getting invoices approved on time. We're working longer as AP professionals. We're also having challenges in getting in touch with approvers. Put it all together, 19% of AP leaders are concerned about the current process. 7% are overwhelmed by it all. And so these are going to help drive some of those goals. And when you look at those types of challenges, well, this is where automation starts to really come into play. Today, organizations know that they've got to find ways to become fully automated. Today, organizations typically have some type of technology in their organization. 61% of you have deployed some AP automation. Now, the fact is that like our poll showed, that doesn't mean you're fully automated. Most organizations have some backfile scanning over here, maybe some data capture technology over there, maybe a supplier portal they never really rolled out to all their suppliers over there, but it's not fully automated. And so what's happening is organizations are looking for ways to move closer to full automation, to becoming optimized. And one good example of this is how it is that we pay our suppliers. Today, more organizations than ever are making more payments than ever electronically to their suppliers. In fact, 4% of IOFM members now make all of their payments to suppliers electronically. If I told you this just 18 months ago, you'd laugh at me. Surely we have to pay somebody with a paper check. Well, when we couldn't get into the office to cut paper checks, we had to find other ways to pay suppliers. And electronic payments are one way that we're doing that. And you know what? It's high time that we got away from paper checks, because compared to electronic payments, well, paper checks cost more. They're more likely to be lost or misplaced. They take longer to process. They take longer to arrive. They don't provide visibility in the process. And you know what? There's also a lot of things that happen with paper checks that they've got to be seen to believe. And Derek's going to show you one example now.
Thanks, Mark. All right, this is amazing. This is my godparents' print shop got mail from their customer, their supplier, and I redacted the addresses to protect the innocent and the guilty. But the check from the customer is actually stuck to a check for another vendor. Part of it was rain. Believe it or not, it rained in California. It's amazing. But you can see how the payment processor kind of kept the check stuck together. It actually comes from the processor that way. So there's a California check. There's a check going to a California vendor, and then one going to an Illinois vendor, and they're stuck together. And you saw the actual check for the California vendor is actually exposed, so anyone could have just walked in, plucked that check out of that envelope. Second check never got to its destination. I actually sent it back for them. But why the AP department didn't send that check electronically is probably a 20th century problem. But in the end, you get one annoyed supplier who is probably going to be inquiring about that payment. You have one supplier whose perception about the competence of their customer to pay in the future is going to be more problematic. This is a time when suppliers are short on a lot of things, and so they're going to service their preferred customer more. And if you can't pay them, maybe you don't get the attention you're going to need to execute your business plan. So they'll also have to cancel that check, potentially resend it, and go through that process. Not fun, not a fun experience.
For anyone involved, and this happens all the time. So we want to be clear here. Not every AP department is automating, right? Some organizations cite a lack of capital budget. They're hoarding cash. They believe it's time to hoard cash, not invest in technology. Well, this is a fallacy in thinking, because with AP automation, you can have your cake and eat it too. You can be able to wring in efficiencies out of your processes that save you money, and you're able to achieve working capital improvements as well as spend management improvements. Some organizations say that they don't have the IT resources to automate. Well, cloud-based solutions, they make it easy to automate. This technology goes in fast. It doesn't disrupt existing processes. Staff can be trained while they work from home, and the technology can integrate into your legacy accounting system or ERP. And in some cases, the technologies are pre-integrated. Other AP leaders say there's just confused about the technology. And truthfully, there are lots of solutions out there, lots of vendors and lots of approaches to automation. But with resources like IOFM, you're able to sort through the technologies and be able to assess which one is right for you using the benchmarks we discussed earlier. Some folks are fearful of change, especially with everything we've been through in the past 18 months. Here again, organizations need to understand that automation is something that your team will benefit from. It shouldn't be seen as scary. It's not a boogeyman. It's the kind of thing that they can rally around. It frees them up to focus on fulfilling higher value tasks that move your department, your business, and their careers forward. And finally, some AP leaders say, well, there's just too many distractions to be able to automate. Well, I'm here to tell you that this is no time for you to be distracted. That brings us to our next poll question, which is about to be displayed on your screen. This time we want to know, which of the following is your biggest accounts payable challenge? Is it that your costs are too high? Is it that you have trouble paying suppliers on time? Is it that you're getting too many calls and too many emails from suppliers about where things stand in the process? Are you concerned about your risk of payment fraud? Is it that you don't have good visibility and control over things? Or is it something else? Take a moment to respond to the poll question now displayed on your screen. I will discuss the results in just a moment. So Derek, you talk to senior finance leaders all the time. In fact, you do a podcast on finance leadership. Talk to me about what it is finance leaders tell you is their biggest concern about the way their AP departments are operating these days.
Well, I certainly think that finance folks are starting to move away from even considering AP as a concern. They know that the technology's out there to solve those problems, so they want to move on. They want to do other things. There are other strategies and initiatives that are on the agenda. I think a lot more of the senior finance folks would rather not have AP as an issue. And so uh, they look for ways to solve that.
We asked our attendees, which of the following is your biggest accounts payable challenge? 26% of our attendees said they've getting too many calls and emails from suppliers about where things stand in the process. 14% of our attendees say they have poor visibility and control over their processes. 7% said they're having trouble paying suppliers on time. 5% said they are fearful of a high risk of payment fraud. 21% of our attendees said something else. I'm not going to let you off the hook that easily. If you said something else, use your chat tool and tell me what that something else is, and we'll discuss it during Q&A. Interestingly, Derek, none of our attendees said their costs were too high. So
Yeah.
does this all surprise you?
It's a little surprising, and it's good. It means there's an appetite for solving this problem. Again, what do you use that cost for? Is it to pay people just to pay people? That seems like not a very modern thing to do, uh, given the state of like what's possible. And so it's good that it's not a cost thing, but it definitely seems like it's annoyance thing if you're getting calls and emails from suppliers.
Absolutely. And what it speaks to, Derek, I think, is that many organizations are wasting a lot of time on activities that ought to be automated. I mean, look at this. When we think about calls and emails from suppliers, oh, that can be automated and you can provide suppliers with access to that information. When I think about generating spreadsheet reports, well, here again, that's something that could be completely done automatically. In fact, you could do it even better with real-time access. When I think about shuffling paper and checking on the, looking for suspicious payments, here again, those are things that could be automated. And the thing is that no matter what your challenge is, you've got to find ways to optimize your AP processes. Senior management, as Derek said, expects it. You can't afford to be stuck in no man's land with these manual or semi-automated processes. The business expects more out of accounts payable. Over the past several years, organizations started to see their strategic value rising. And this has only accelerated over the past 18 months as a result of the economic downturn. Today, the business wants AP to help them be a partner to achieving strategic objectives, not just paying suppliers on time. as if that was ever all that AP did. So today, when you talk to senior finance leaders, well, what they're looking for is they want visibility into what's going on in their operations so they know that there's no unnecessary costs. They want to be able to have analysis of what's going on with their cash flow so they can forecast it and better control their money. They also want to know that things are under lock and key. They want better control over the processes as well as their data. And they want to be in a continuous process improvement loop. It's not enough to just get some short-term gains. They want a foundation for scaling the business so that as the business grows, they won't have to continue hiring additional staff. This isn't just a phenomenon in accounts payable, to be honest with you. It's across the corporate enterprise. Over the past 18 months, businesses have accelerated their push toward digital transformation. That's what this chart shows you. It shows that more organizations believe that digital transformation is important or very important to the business. And what might surprise a lot of you is that it's so important that in many organizations, it's the CFO, not the CIO or CTO, who's leading the charge. This shows you just how important it is to a business's growth. And so this means we've got to find ways to free up our staff's time. 84% of the typical accounts payable practitioner's time is spent on heads down transaction processing. In fact, AP managers tend to spend more time on transaction processing each day than on the managerial tasks they were hired to perform. And this is no surprise when you consider all of these manual and repetitive tasks that consume our days. Everything from those supplier inquiries we just spoke of to opening the mail and shuffling our paper. And invoices are a big time suck when it comes to AP processing. As I told you earlier, most organizations are handling most of the invoices they receive. And while you might think that's bad, let me give you this. This stat measures up against the fact that 70% of all AP departments have already deployed some technology. So that means that there's a lot of automated departments out there who are handling a lot of invoices. What is it organizations would do if they could achieve this touch-free processing that everyone's talking about? Well, when you ask CFOs what they would do, the answer might surprise you. What they're saying is that through automation, they've been able to eliminate 40% of their manual processing time. They're able to deliver a better experience to customers as well as to suppliers, and they're able to mitigate the risk. So what happens after all this? Well, in many cases, organizations are reallocating staff to higher value tasks. I told you a moment ago that 84% of the typical accounts payable practitioner's time is spent on manual transaction processing. But if you were to ask a CFO what it is they'd want AP staff focused on, well, they'd tell you just the opposite. They want staff focused on higher value activities. Things like analyzing data and collaborating with stakeholders across the business, building relationships with suppliers. So organizations recognize that through optimization, they're able to do all that. And that brings us to our third poll question, which is about to be displayed on your screen. This time we want to know what percentage of the invoices you receive from suppliers must be manually handled. Now be honest, no fibbing here. What percentage of the invoices you receive from suppliers must be manually handled? Are you manually handling all of them? Is it between 3/4 and 99% of all the invoices you receive? Is it between half and 74% of all the invoices you receive? Is it between 1/4 and 49% of all the invoices you receive? Is it between 1% and 24%? Or is it none of them? You're posting all of your invoices straight through directly to your ERP or accounting system without anyone ever having to lift a finger. Take a moment to respond to the poll question now displayed on your screen. And we'll discuss the results in just a moment. I know there's somebody listening in right now, Derek, who thinks, wait a second, come on. Touch-free invoice processing for 3/4 or more of my invoices? That sounds like a pipe dream. Is this really happening these days, Derek?
It can happen. It's certainly challenging, even from a technological standpoint. We will often have a certain amount of straight through, and then as the processors learn about the invoices, they need to be corrected, and then machine learning takes over after that. So you do have to run a few through in order for it to work. But it is possible, and certainly if you add in a little bit of managed services on top of that, you actually never have to see the invoice.
Nearly half of our attendees are manually handling at least half of the invoices they receive from suppliers. We asked you what percentage of supplier invoices must be manually handled. 20% of the folks on the line, Derek, say every single invoice they receive is being manually handled. 17% of our attendees said between half and 74% of their invoices are manually handled. 2% said between 75% and 99% of their invoices they receive are manually handled. None of our attendees are able to post all of their invoices straight through. 17% of our attendees put it between 1 and 24%. What you want to do is you want to get to as close to that touch-free processing as possible. And while that might not be possible immediately out of the gate, this is the environment you want to achieve. You want to find ways to achieve optimum AP efficiency and effectiveness. You want to find ways to maximize your staff's potential. Touch-free processing is critical. And best-in-class organizations, they already know this. They've deployed technologies that help them achieve posting directly to their ERP. 88% of all best-in-class organizations have technology for performing two-way or three-way matching of invoices against POs and shipping documents. 81% of best-in-class organizations have the ability to post invoices directly to their ERP or accounting system. And more AP departments are looking to follow suit. 62% of organizations say they want to find ways to reduce the number of exceptions. To my mind, that's to eliminate that manual handling. To do this, you want to find a way to create a foundation for allowing invoices to flow straight through. So you want to eliminate manual tasks all along the AP lifecycle. And today's cloud-based technologies can help you do just that. It all starts with supplier management. Where supplier receives an invitation to join the network, they provide their own contact information and banking details. The technology automatically vets the supplier to make sure that they're able to be paid. And then after they've submitted invoices electronically, they're able to go and check on the status of invoices and payments, or even update their contact information 24/7, 365 from anywhere in the country. The second key piece to touch-free processing is, of course, invoice management. You want to find a solution that allows you to receive invoices in any format, to extract the data using technologies such as optical character recognition, to validate that information, and then to match it up against POs sitting in your ERP, and then to post any matched invoices directly to your ERP. And of course, there's going to be cases where an invoice doesn't match a PO, or cases where, for whatever reason, an invoice needs to be seen by an approver. For this, you're going to have invoice routing. So now you're going to be able to configure rules-based workflows for digitally routing those invoices. Recipients will be notified automatically that they've received an invoice that requires their review. They'll be alerted when that invoice is approaching its due date. And if they don't take action fast enough, that invoice is automatically going to be escalated to somebody else who can take action on it. What's more, mobile capabilities provide on-the-go approvals, and real-time visibility into where an invoice stands in the process allows AP managers to take evasive maneuvers to keep processes moving. What this does is, when you combine that data capture with your invoice routing, now we've moved much closer to touch-free posting. Once we've posted those invoices to our ERP, now we're going to have to pay them electronically. Stop cutting paper checks. What you want to find is a solution that offers you multiple payment options so that you can pay suppliers easily in their preferred format from a single platform. And that includes cross-border payments. You want to make sure the solution can automatically generate the rich remittance detail that suppliers need to post in payments directly to their AR system without having to call you for clarification. And you want to offer options to suppliers to accelerate payments in exchange for a discount. And supply chain financing allows you to do that without impacting the cash on your balance sheet. And with the right solution, payments can be reconciled automatically. And behind all of this, you want to have reporting. So graphical dashboards to where things stand in the process, drill down capabilities to get to the root cause of trends and problems. You want to have mobile access so people on the go can stay in the know. You want to be able to have support for multiple subsidiaries, no matter where they're located, as well as automated tax reporting. If you do this, you're going to provide value across the organization. You're going to provide greater transparency into what's happening in accounts payable. And that's going to help your organization, not just your department, achieve optimal results. That brings us to our fourth poll question, which is about to be displayed on your screen. This time we want to know, which of the following technologies does your AP department currently use as part of its tech stack? Go ahead and check all that apply. Are you using cloud technology? Are you using optical character recognition, OCR? Are you using digital invoice approval workflows? Are you using supply chain financing? Are you using an online supplier portal? Or are you using none of the technologies? Go ahead, take a moment to respond to the poll question now displayed on your screen, and we'll discuss the results in just a moment. Derek, have we settled the debate over the value of cloud technology versus on-premises solutions?
I hope so. But there's always stragglers. I think the cloud's proven its worth, and certainly in terms of value over time, the limited amount of maintenance you need to run. You don't need a specialist per se. You can have admins, and then as more folks become more remote, certainly in today's world, as well as if you have multiple countries you're operating in, there's no replacement for cloud. So
We asked our attendees which of the following technologies does your AP department currently use as part of its tech stack? 45% of our attendees are using digital invoice approval workflows. They are not shuffling paper. 39% of our attendees are indeed using cloud technology. 35% of our attendees have some sort of an online supplier portal. 1/4 of you are using optical character recognition to extract that data automatically. Only 4% of you are using supply chain financing, and 16% of you are using none of the above. If you're looking for ways to achieve optimum AP efficiency and effectiveness, the right tech stack is going to be critical. You want to move your organization toward best-in-class operations, and that means fully electronic, touch-free processing with full visibility. And to do that, you need a solution that's 100% cloud-based, offers you end-to-end capabilities, so you're not just moving the cheese. You want to be able to have a solution that can scale with your business and help support, and in some cases drive that growth. You want to make sure it supports multiple subsidiaries as well as global operations. Even small businesses are doing business with global suppliers these days, and you want to make sure it has built-in controls. Before you go looking for technology, I want you to take stock of where you stand today. What's your business maturity? What are your short and long-term goals? What are your plans for expansion? And where are your points of pain? If you do all this, if you implement the strategies we've discussed today, you're going to be closer to achieving optimum results. You're going to be closer to touch-free AP processing. And now I'm going to hand it off to Derek to tell you a little bit about the sponsor of today's webinar, Tipalti. Derek.
thank you, Mark, and thank you to the IOFM community. It's always great to be here. I'll just gloss over our promo slide. Really, that's really what it is. And we serve over 1,500 customers. We've been around since 2012, I believe. And we're really proud of a few things. One, obviously, our customers are brands you probably recognize. I'll do a quick call out to one of them, which is Zola. They are an e-commerce company, and they provide a site for people who want to get married. And if you are one of those folks, congratulations. You're probably on Zola's site scoping out products and services. But they make over 600,000 invoice payments a year. And they do this with 2 people, which is astounding. So just the volume of what they're doing is amazing. It's global in that their suppliers and service providers are global in nature because they're getting products from a lot of different places. And they're able to run this with 2 people, which is really kind of amazing. The number we're kind of most proud of is this 98% customer retention number. We're very much proud of how our organization really kind of works to keep our customers. It makes it feel like we are foundational to what they're working on, what they're doing. They don't need to change from that point, and means we're growing with these companies. This last year, we've had several go IPO, and that's been really exciting. Whoops. To go over kind of what our platform does, the reason companies actually choose Tipalti is they really need the full breadth of the process handled. And so we really look at the problem more holistically around supplier management, around tax compliance, procurement management. We've just added a product that does that provides PO and PR workflows within an organization and helps companies manage that, ties that back into invoicing and being able to handle global invoices. That's something that's fairly unique for Tipalti. And then the payment remittance part of it, that process, being able to pay to 196 countries over local currencies using multiple payment methods, avoiding checks that get stuck together. That's all part of the flow, and we treat it as that, as a single process. Being able to handle for FX as well as ultimately reconciling back to your ERP, so that you don't have to be worried about, like, did a check clear? What were the fees associated with that particular payment? All those things that might kind of gum up the financial close process. We tackle that on and are able to reduce financial close anywhere from 25 to 50% of the time that's required. So really, it's about a very scalable process that tends to be global in nature, and we're doing this for companies that are growing. And yeah, that's all I had.
And that brings us to the Q&A portion of this webinar. If you haven't already submitted your question for Derek, or if you've thought of another question for Derek, go ahead, use the chat tool on your screen to submit your questions now. We'll answer as many questions as time allows. Derek, our first question is from Tanya. She writes, our senior management is reluctant to change. Any advice for selling them on AP automation?
I used to hear that a lot more. I think a lot of senior management have moved on from that. Can you get them in this webinar? That's one way, because I think Mark makes a very compelling case for all of those things. Ultimately, it is about culture as well. You think about the next generation of finance and accounting folks coming in. They are not like the current generation. They are less likely to. They will desire less the request to key in an invoice. Here's an invoice. Put this in your ERP and run it through. That's not a job they look forward to, and so I would think about longevity. I would think about where you are as an organization, where you want to be, because obviously spending a certain amount of time doing AP means you don't have time to do something else.
Tenny writes, tell me more about how your solution automates cross-border payments.
Oh, great question. It's our bread and butter. We actually started in the payment space before we even got into AP. We were able to make payments across wire, ACH, global ACH, which is another way to say local bank transfers directly in. So these are like SEPA payments and other local bank relationships. We're PayPal, prepaid debit card as well. And then of course we can do checks. It's I think we only about 2 to 5% of our customers actually send out checks. Everybody else is using some form of electronic payment. And uh, we have some bank relationships that are very critical to our execution. The way it works is you fund basically a payment account directly into Tipalti, and then Tipalti runs the dispersion uh, from our payment network. And what that means is like you can have vendors who are maybe getting paid in using wire transfers. Some may be PayPal, some may be ACH. It doesn't actually matter because your single payment run, you just say pay, and we will execute all those branches for you.
Krista writes, how much will our IT be involved in getting your program integrated with our company and our systems?
In terms of systems, I can't speak for you because I don't know what your systems are. We generally have we support basically any ERP, and we have native integrations with Intac and NetSuite, including NetSuite OneWorld. We and oh, QuickBooks Online. So those are the three we have native connections to. We have a seamless integration into all the other ERPs, including ones that I've never heard of. So we're able to support basically whatever form factor that comes in. That's the only real IT execution. Everything else happens within the product, including the supplier portal, including payments. All of that is run directly away from any need to involve IT directly.
Another question from Krista. She writes, does your program offer any enhancements for travel and expense processing and reporting?
I will not answer that because it's too future looking.
We have another question. Fair enough. Sushil wants to know, talk to me about how your solution handles tax reporting.
So we actually, because suppliers are made payable through the system directly, we're able to extract their we basically request their tax information. So EIN, Social Security, whatever it is, including W-8s as well for international. That's part of their onboarding. And then when they provide that information, they are marked as payable, and we go ahead and as they start to get payments from Tipalti, we'll provide that accounting for you at the end of the year. And then we just introduced, I believe, 1099 form issuance. So you can actually take data from Tipalti, create 1099 through tax 1099s integration. So lots of cool stuff there.
Nadine writes, any tips for paying gig workers?
That's one of our specialties. As I mentioned, we started off as a payments company. We work with a lot of platform providers. So Twitch, if you're familiar, their entire network of streamers, we pay everybody on Twitch. If you have kids, chances are during pandemic, you loaded Roblox for them. And we pay every developer on Roblox. And these are all non-invoice backed payments. If you have a system that is tracking performance and needing to pay people across the globe, we provide facilities for that, and that's our specialty.
And that will be our final word. Derek, thanks so much for an excellent presentation and for sharing your insights with us today. And thank you all for taking time out of your busy days to join us. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Laura. Ms. Laura.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Derek, for a great webinar today. Before everyone logs off, I have a few housekeeping notes. Many of you have asked about the on-demand materials. Just a reminder, everyone will receive a thank you email with the on-demand materials within 2 business days. This will include a link to today's live webinar as a recording, as well as a PDF of the presentation. Also, if you could please fill out the short evaluation form that will appear once you close out of the webinar window. This will help us in developing future webinars, and your insights are greatly appreciated. Thank you again to Derek and Mark for a great webinar today, and thank you to all of our attendees for taking the time out of your busy day to join us. This webinar was brought to you by IOFM and sponsored by Tipalti. Thank you all and have a great rest of your day.